The manila envelope sat on my doorstep like a ticking bomb. No return address, just my name, Ivy, written in careful block letters. I almost stepped over it, my mind still focused on the morning's client sessions at the gym, but something made me pause. My name is Ivy, and 3 years ago I thought I had everything figured out. Successful fitness trainer, loving husband, beautiful son, and a life that looked perfect on Instagram. Funny how one envelope can shatter all that. I picked it up, noting its weight, the way it bulged slightly in the middle. Inside my kitchen, I dropped my gym bag and protein shake, sliding my finger under the flap. Photos spilled onto my granite countertop like autumn leaves, each one more devastating than the last. Julian, my husband, with another woman. Different locations, different outfits, same intimate gestures. His hand on her lower back at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Her head thrown back in laughter as they walked through a park. The final photo showed them entering a hotel, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. My phone buzzed. Julian's face lit up my screen. "Coming home late tonight, babe." Client dinner. I stared at his message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never once doubted him. Even when his mother Edith insisted we move into the family home to save money. Even when his sister Vivian made snide comments about my common background, I trusted Julian completely. "No problem," I typed back. "Noah and I will have dinner without you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Thanks for understanding. Love you." I set my phone face down and walked to our son's room. Noah was napping, his little chest rising and falling peacefully. 3, he was too young to understand what these photos meant, too innocent to know his father might be destroying our family. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number this time. "There's more you need to know. Meet me at Riverside Coffee tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come alone." I should have been angry, should have been screaming or crying. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like I was watching someone else's life implode. I picked up the photos, studying them more carefully. The woman was beautiful in an obvious way, exactly the type Julian's mother would approve of. Unlike me, with my athletic build and practical ponytail. The front door opened and I heard Edith's voice calling out, "Ivy? Where are you? The gardener needs direction about the rose bushes." I quickly slid the photos back into the envelope and tucked it into my gym bag. "Coming," I called back, my voice steadier than I expected. Edith stood in the foyer, perfectly coiffed as always. "Really, dear, you should change out of those gym clothes before Noah wakes up. A mother should look presentable." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll go change right now." As I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, I heard her on the phone. "Yes, Vivian, she's finally home." "No, Julian isn't here yet." "Yes, I'll tell him about dinner on Sunday." I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'd meet my mysterious informant. Tomorrow, I'd find out just how deep this betrayal went. But tonight I'd play my part. I'd change into something presentable, smile through dinner with my mother-in-law, and tuck my son into bed. I'd kiss Julian when he came home, tasting his lies on his lips. Because if there's one thing being a fitness trainer has taught me, it's that the best results require patience, planning, and perfect form. And whatever was coming next, I intended to execute it flawlessly. Riverside Coffee was busier than I expected for a Tuesday morning. I dropped Noah at daycare early, telling myself it was just another normal day. Except normal days don't usually involve meeting mysterious strangers about your cheating husband. I spotted her immediately, the woman from the photos. She sat in a corner booth, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself forward, sliding into the seat across from her. "I'm Caroline," she said, not looking up. "Julian's ex-fiancé." The word hit me like a slap. Julian had never mentioned being engaged before. Ex-fiancé. 3 years ago. Right before he met you, actually. She finally met my eyes. Edith arranged the whole thing. Old money, proper breeding, everything she wanted for her precious son. I thought about the photos. But you're still seeing him. No. Caroline's laugh was bitter. Those photos are from 3 years ago, right before our wedding. I found out he was seeing you, confronted him, and he called everything off. She pulled out her phone, showing me the timestamp metadata on the photos. Edith never forgave either of us, him for choosing you, me for not fighting harder to keep him. My relief about the photos lasted exactly 3 seconds before the implications sank in. Why show me now? Because yesterday I overheard something at the country club. Edith and Vivian were talking about Julian's investment opportunity. They're planning to drain your savings, Ivy. All of it. The pieces started falling into place. Julian's recent hints about a can't-miss business venture, his mother's sudden interest in my career success, the way Vivian kept bringing up my impressive client list at family dinners. How much do they think I have? Enough to cover Julian's gambling debts. That's what ended our engagement. I discovered he'd lost almost everything. The family fortune, his trust fund, all of it. Caroline's hands trembled slightly. Edith covered it up, but she can't keep doing it. They need fresh money. My phone buzzed. Julian, did you get a chance to look at those investment papers I left on your desk? I stared at the message, remembering the thick folder he'd given me yesterday. I hadn't opened it yet, too distracted by the photos. There's more, Caroline said quietly. The house, it's not actually in Julian's name. Edith still owns everything. If you sign those papers, you'll be responsible for all their debts, but you'll have no legal claim to anything. The coffee shop door chimed. Vivian walked in, her designer handbag swinging. She froze when she saw us, her perfectly painted smile cracking. Ivy? What a surprise. Her voice carried across the cafe. And Caroline? How interesting. Caroline stood quickly. Think about what I said, she murmured, then brushed past Vivian without acknowledgement. Vivian slid into the vacant seat, her expression concerned. You shouldn't trust anything that woman says. She's been bitter ever since Julian chose you. Did he choose me? I asked quietly. Or did he just need someone with a steady income? Something flickered in Vivian's eyes, surprise, maybe even respect. You're smarter than you look. She leaned forward. Listen, whatever Caroline told you, just remember family comes first. Julian needs you right now. We all do. I thought about Noah, about the life I wanted for him. Yes, I said slowly. Family does come first. Vivian's smile returned, triumphant. She didn't notice my hands under the table, sending a quick text to my bank. Freeze all accounts immediately. Possible fraud. I should go, I said, standing. I have clients waiting. Of course. Vivian's voice was honey-sweet. Oh, and don't forget about those investment papers. Julian's really counting on your support. I walked out of the coffee shop, my mind racing. They thought they had me cornered, this family of wolves in designer clothing. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I hadn't survived as a female fitness trainer in a male-dominated industry by being naive. The game they wanted to play? I could play it better. And I had nothing left to lose. That evening, I sat at my desk, staring at Julian's investment papers while Noah played with his blocks nearby. The documents looked legitimate enough, glossy brochures for a luxury resort development, projected returns that seemed too good to be true. 'Cause they were. My laptop pinged with an email from my bank. Count frozen as requested. I'd need to visit in person to make any changes. Perfect. Mommy, look. Noah held up his tower of blocks, beaming. It's tall like Daddy. The front door opened and Julian's footsteps echoed through the hall. I quickly slid the papers into my desk drawer. There's my boy. Julian swept Noah up, making airplane noises. He looked at me, his smile faltering slightly. Did you get a chance to look at those papers? Actually, I tried to transfer the money, but there seems to be an issue with the bank. I watched his face carefully. They need me to come in person. Something flickered in his eyes. Panic? I can go with you tomorrow. Make sure everything goes smoothly. That won't be necessary. I stood up, stretching. I already made an appointment. Vivian offered to watch Noah. Julian set our son down, his movements suddenly precise. You saw Vivian today? At 𝘊𝘒3𝘋. Strange coincidence, running into her there. Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Julian's phone buzzed, probably Vivian warning him. He glanced at it but didn't answer. Ivy, about Caroline. Your ex-fiancé? The one you never mentioned? I kept my voice light, conscious of Noah playing nearby. The one your mother still compares me to at every family dinner? It wasn't serious. He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. You know you're the only one who matters to me. You and Noah. His touch felt different now, knowing what I knew. Like a snake's scale, smooth but cold. Noah, sweetie, I called out. Time to get ready for bed. But Daddy just got home. It's okay, champ, Julian said. I'll read you an extra long story tomorrow. As I tucked Noah in, Julian's phone buzzed again. And again. I heard him in the hallway, his voice low but urgent. Mother, now isn't a good time. When I came back downstairs, Edith was in our living room, impeccably dressed despite the late hour. Ivy, dear. We need to talk about these investment papers. Mother, Julian warned. No, Julian. This affects all of us. Edith's smile was razor sharp. Ivy needs to understand what family means. Family? I laughed, surprising all of us. Like how you covered up Julian's gambling debts. Or how you're trying to trap me into taking responsibility for them. Julian went pale. Edith's smile didn't waver, but her hands tightened on her designer purse. Caroline told you. It wasn't a question. That spiteful girl never could keep her mouth shut. She didn't have to tell me everything. I moved to my desk, pulled out the investment papers. I had these reviewed by a lawyer this afternoon. Interesting structure, all the liability, none of the ownership. Very clever. You went to a lawyer? Julian's voice cracked. I also spoke to the bank. I turned to Edith. Did you know Julian's been transferring money from our joint account to cover his gambling? $5,000 last week alone. Edith's composure slipped just for a moment. She turned to Julian. You're still gambling? The look on Julian's face, caught between his mother and his wife, between his addiction and his lies, almost made me pity him. Almost. I can explain, he started, but his phone buzzed again. This time, I was close enough to see the screen. Not Vivian. Not his mother. A message from Amanda with a heart emoji. Missing you already. Last night was amazing. The silence that followed was deafening. I think, I said quietly, you both should leave. Ivy, Julian reached for me. Now. My voice didn't shake. Before I wake up Noah and tell him exactly why his father is leaving. They left, Edith's heels clicking on the hardwood, Julian's shoulders slumped in defeat. I locked the door behind them, then sat on the stairs, listening to Noah's soft breathing from upstairs. Tomorrow I'd go to the bank. Tomorrow I'd start untangling myself from their web of lies. But tonight I allowed myself one moment of pure, clarifying rage. They wanted to play games with my life, my money, my son's future? Fine. Game on. The bank manager's expression said everything before she even opened my account records. Mrs. Harrison, there seems to be a problem. I already knew what she'd found. I'd spent all night reviewing our finances, tracking Julian's systematic drain of our accounts. But hearing the numbers out loud made my hands shake. The transfers started small, she explained, sliding papers across her desk. 2,000 here, 5,000 there. But last month alone, she pointed to a figure that made my stomach turn. $50,000. Gone. I'd like to close all joint accounts, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, and open new ones in my name only. As she processed the paperwork, my phone lit up with texts from Julian. Where are you? Mother's worried. Please come home. We can fix this. The last one made me laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that startled the bank manager. Sorry, I said. Just remembered something funny. Like how Julian had convinced me to put my fitness business earnings into our joint account. For tax purposes, he'd said. For our future. Walking out of the bank, I felt lighter. Dangerous. Free. I had an appointment with my lawyer next, but first I needed to pick up Noah from Ivy. Grant, Vivian's husband, stood by my car. In 3 years of family dinners and forced holidays, he'd barely spoken 10 words to me. Now here he was, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. They sent you to talk to me? No. He glanced around the parking lot. They don't know I'm here. Listen, there's something you need to see. He held out a USB drive. Financial records. The real ones. From before you married Julian. I stared at the small device. Why are you helping me? Because Vivian. He swallowed hard. She's pregnant. And I won't let my child grow up in this mess. I took the drive, watching him walk away. At my lawyer's office, the documents told a story that made my blood run cold. The gambling debts weren't just Julian's. The entire family was drowning in them, using new loans to pay off old ones, creating a pyramid scheme of desperation. My phone buzzed again. Edith this time, family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable. Perfect. I drove home, finding Julian waiting in the driveway. He looked terrible, unshaven, shirt wrinkled. Good. Where's Noah? I asked before he could speak. Mother has him. Ivy, please let me explain about Amanda. You can explain at dinner. I walked past him into the house. I'm sure your mother would love to hear about her too. He grabbed my arm. Don't. Mother can't handle any more stress right now. Can't handle the truth, you mean? I pulled away. Like how you're still gambling. Or how you've been stealing from me. Borrowing, he corrected quickly. I was going to pay it back. The resort development is a scam. I turned to face him. Just like our marriage. Something dark crossed his face. You don't mean that. Actually, I do. I headed upstairs to change. See you at dinner, honey. In our bedroom, I packed a small bag, essential documents, some clothes for Noah and me, the USB drive. Just in case. Then I dressed carefully, choosing the red dress Edith always said was too bold for family occasions. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Grant. Be careful tonight. Vivian's been making calls. I smiled at my reflection, applying red lipstick with steady hands. They thought they had me cornered, the troublesome wife who needed to be managed, controlled, bled dry. They didn't realize they'd created their own worst nightmare, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Tonight's dinner would be interesting. I had the truth, the evidence, and most importantly, I had their precious family reputation in my hands. Let them try to stop me. Edith's dining room felt like a stage set, crystal glasses catching the chandelier light, silver gleaming on starched white linen. Noah sat between Vivian and Edith, happily munching on the chicken nuggets they'd specially ordered for him. My son, the only person they bothered to accommodate. More wine, dear. Edith's smile was razor sharp as she lifted the bottle. No, thank you. I kept my glass full but untouched. I need a clear head for my morning clients. Ah, yes, your little exercise classes. She set the bottle down with a precise clink. Though I heard you've been doing more than just teaching lately. Julian stiffened beside me. I smiled. News travels fast. Grant mentioned something about a bank visit. Vivian's voice dripped concern. Is everything all right? Perfectly fine. I cut into my untouched steak. Just some routine account maintenance. Speaking of maintenance, Julian, did you tell your mother about Amanda? The silence was absolute. Even Noah looked up, sensing the tension. Amanda. Edith's knuckles whitened around her fork. Julian's new investment partner. I took a deliberate sip of water. They've been working very closely together. Noah, sweetie, Vivian stood quickly. Let's go watch your favorite show in the den. But I want to stay with Mommy. Go on, baby, I said softly. Just for a little while. The moment Noah left, Edith's facade cracked. What game are you playing, Ivy? Game? I pulled out my phone, sliding it across the table. Like the game where Julian empties our accounts for his gambling? Or the one where you try to trap me into taking on the family's debts? You ungrateful, Vivian started, but Grant caught her arm. Let her speak, he said quietly. I stood, walking to the antique sideboard where Edith kept her precious family photos. 3 years I've tried to fit into this family. 3 years of criticism, manipulation, and lies. I picked up a frame Julian and me on our wedding day. But you know what's funny? You were so busy trying to control me, you never noticed I was watching too. Ivy, please, Julian reached for me. Whatever you think you know. I know everything. I set the photo down hard enough to crack the glass. The gambling, the affairs, the fraud. Every loan, every scheme, every lie. You have no proof, Edith said, but her voice wavered. I laughed. Check your email. All of you. I sent quite an interesting package about an hour ago. Bank records, photos, everything. A copy to the police too, just in case. You wouldn't dare. Vivian's face was pale. Think about Noah. I am thinking about Noah. My voice finally broke. I'm thinking about how he deserves better than growing up in this poison. Better than watching his father gamble away his future while his grandmother orchestrates cover-ups. Mother, Julian's voice was desperate. Tell her it's not true. But Edith just sat there, her perfect posture finally crumbling. How did you get those records? Does it matter? I walked to the door. Noah. Time to go home, baby. You can't take him. Julian stood. This is his home. Actually, I pulled out another paper from my bag, according to our new custody agreement filed this afternoon. I can. Emergency temporary custody, granted due to evidence of financial fraud and unsafe living conditions. Noah came running in, Grant following with his backpack. Our eyes met briefly, his apologetic, mine grateful. But where will you go? Vivian stammered. Away from here. I took Noah's hand. Oh, and Julian? Amanda called. Apparently, she's pregnant too. Congratulations. The last thing I saw as we walked out was Edith's face crumpling, Vivian's hand flying to her own pregnant belly, and Julian, my charming, lying husband, finally running out of masks to wear. In the car, Noah yawned. Mommy, why didn't we finish dinner? Because sometimes, baby, I started the engine, watching the grand house shrink in my rearview mirror. Leaving the table is the healthiest choice you can make. My phone started buzzing with their calls and messages, but I didn't answer. They'd taken enough of my time, my money, my trust. But they wouldn't take another second of my future. Or my son's. 3 weeks into our new life, I woke to banging on my apartment door. Noah stirred in the makeshift bed beside me. We were still sleeping in the living room, waiting for furniture to arrive. Police. Open up. My heart stopped. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers and Julian, his face a mask of concern. Perfect. Officers, I opened the door, keeping the chain on. Is something wrong? Ma'am, we have reports of child endangerment. We need to check on Noah's welfare. Behind them, Julian's concerned facade cracked into a slight smirk. Of course. When manipulation failed, he'd try force. I let them in, watching as they took in our sparse living room, the air mattresses, the takeout containers, Noah's toys scattered across the floor. It looked bad, I knew that. Exactly as Julian had planned. "Noah, baby, come say hi to the officers." My son peeked out from behind me, thumb in mouth, a habit he'd picked up since we left. "Daddy." "Hey, champ." Julian stepped forward, but I blocked his path. "My lawyer," I said to the officers, pulling out my phone. "I need to call her." "Of course," one officer nodded, while his partner spoke quietly into his radio. Julian moved closer, his voice low. "You really think anyone will believe you over me? A single mother living like this?" He gestured at our temporary setup. "While I have a proper home, family support, stability?" "You mean the stability of gambling debts? Or the family support of lies and fraud?" "Prove it." His smile was cold. "Those records you threatened us with? Inadmissible in court. Grant made sure of that before he handed them over." My stomach dropped. Grant's help had been too convenient, too perfect. Another manipulation. The officers finished their inspection, making notes about the living conditions. I could see it through their eyes, the missing furniture, the makeshift beds, the chaos of a hasty move. All while Julian stood there in his perfect suit, radiating concern and stability. "Mrs. Harrison," the older officer said, "we'll need you to come down to the station. There are some questions." A knock interrupted him. Through the still open door walked Caroline, carrying a stack of files. "Sorry I'm late," she said, all business. "I'm Mrs. Harrison's attorney, and I believe you officers will find these interesting." She handed them each a folder. Certified bank records showing Mr. Harrison's gambling losses. Court-admissible evidence of financial fraud. And she smiled at Julian. DNA test results proving Mr. Harrison's paternity of my unborn child. Julian's face went ash-white. "My client," Caroline continued, "has full documentation of her income, rental agreement, and Noah's new school registration. The temporary living conditions are just that, temporary. The furniture arrives tomorrow." The officers reviewed the documents, their expressions shifting. Julian started to speak, but Caroline cut him off. "Oh, and one more thing." She pulled out her phone, playing a recording of Julian's voice. "Those records you threatened us with? Inadmissible in court. Grant made sure of that." "You recorded me?" Julian sputtered. "No," I said quietly. "I did. Just now. Funny how people reveal themselves when they think they've won." The officers exchanged looks. "Mr. Harrison, we'll need you to come with us. Making false reports is a serious offense." As they led Julian out, Caroline turned to me. "You okay?" I looked around our sparse apartment, at Noah playing quietly with his toys, unaware of how close we'd come to losing everything. "Why help me?" I asked. "After everything." "Because 3 years ago I was you. Except I didn't fight back." She touched her pregnant belly. "This time I am." After they left, I sat beside Noah, watching him stack blocks into wobbly towers. My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. "I'm sorry. They threatened Vivian, the baby." I had to. Another buzz, Edith. "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't over. But for the first time since this started, I wasn't afraid. They'd thrown everything they had at me, and I was still standing. Tomorrow, the furniture would arrive. Tomorrow, we'd start building our new life for real. But tonight, watching Noah play in our imperfect temporary home, I realized something important. Sometimes rock bottom has a foundation you can build on. The Harrison family mansion loomed before me, its windows dark except for Edith's study. 6 months had passed since that night with the police, and now I was back, not as Julian's wife or Edith's daughter-in-law, but as their creditor. I adjusted my blazer, checking that the USB drive was still in my pocket. Noah was safe with Caroline, probably playing with her newborn daughter. The thought gave me strength as I rang the doorbell. Grant opened it, looking haunted. "They're all in the study. How convenient." I stepped past him. "Everyone I need to see, all in one place." The study door was ajar, voices drifting out. Edith's sharp tone, Julian's pleading, Vivian's barely contained hysteria. "We can't sell the house," Edith was saying. "It's been in the family for generations." I pushed the door open. "Actually, you can. And you will." They froze like actors in a tableau, Edith behind her massive desk, Julian pacing, Vivian perched on the leather sofa, her pregnancy now obvious. "You have no right to be here," Edith started, but I cut her off. "I have every right." I placed a folder on her desk. "As the majority holder of your debt." Julian stopped pacing. "What?" "It's amazing what you can buy when a family's desperate. I've spent the last 6 months acquiring your loans, your mortgages, everything." I smiled. "You wanted my money? Now you have my attention." "You vindictive little," Vivian stood, but Grant caught her arm. "Let her speak," he said quietly. "Oh, now you want to hear me?" I pulled out the USB drive. "Funny, because I've been listening to all of you for years. Every criticism, every manipulation, every lie." I turned to Julian. "Including your conversations with Amanda about how to bleed me dry." "I never," Julian started. "Save it." I connected the drive to Edith's computer. "Everything's here, the gambling, the fraud, the conspiracies. But that's not why I'm here." Edith's face had gone pale as she scanned the files. "What do you want?" "Simple. Sign over the house and assets to my holding company and I'll restructure your debt. You can stay here as tenants. Under my terms." "You can't be serious," Vivian laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Or," I continued, "I can call in all the loans tomorrow." "Your choice." Julian moved toward me, his charm switching on like a light. "Ivy, sweetheart, we can talk about this." "Don't." My voice cracked like a whip. 3 years, Julian. 3 years I tried to be part of this family. And you know what I learned? The only thing you people understand is power. "You're just like us," Edith said softly. "Using money to control people." "No." I met her eyes. "I'm protecting my son from becoming like you. Noah will grow up knowing his worth isn't measured by his bank account or family name." "And what about my grandchild?" Vivian's hand rested on her belly. "Would you leave them homeless?" "Sign the papers and no one has to leave. But things will change." I pulled out a pen. "Starting with how you treat people." Silence fell. I could see them calculating just as they'd calculated how to use me years ago. Finally, Edith reached for the pen. "Mother, no." Julian protested. "Enough, Julian." Edith's hand shook as she signed. "We did this. All of us." One by one they signed, Vivian with tears, Julian with rage, Grant with what looked like relief. "It's done," I said, collecting the papers. "The lawyers will contact you about the new arrangements." As I turned to leave, Edith spoke again. "Was it worth it? This revenge?" I paused at the door. "This isn't revenge, Edith. It's protection from yourselves." I looked at each of them. "Maybe now you'll learn what family really means." Walking out, I heard Vivian start to cry, Julian cursing, Edith's heavy silence. But for the first time since I'd entered their lives, I felt clean. Free. My phone buzzed, a photo from Caroline of Noah playing with her daughter, both laughing. This was what mattered. Not revenge, not power, but building something better for the next generation. Let the Harrisons keep their mansion. I had everything I needed. 1 year later, I stood in front of the Harrison mansion, watching the movers carry out Edith's antiques. Noah played on the front lawn, his laughter mixing with the sound of another child, Vivian's daughter, Emma, crawling after him on a blanket while Grant watched them both. "Everything's packed," Caroline appeared beside me, her own daughter strapped to her chest. "Edith's waiting in the study." I nodded, taking a deep breath. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I'd first walked through these doors as Julian's bride, but maybe it was the one we all needed. The study looked smaller now, its shelves empty. Edith sat at her desk. No, my desk now, writing something. The last of the paperwork? I asked. She looked up, her face softer than I remembered. A letter. For Noah. She held it out. For when he's older. To explain. Everything. I took it, noting how her hands trembled. I heard Julian's doing better. The gambling therapy. 6 months sober. A ghost of pride crossed her face. Amanda's baby helped. Gave him something to fight for. Like Noah did for me. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Edith stood, smoothing her skirt with dignified precision. I never told you why I was so hard on you, she said quietly. I saw myself in you. The determination, the independence. I had that once before I let this house, this name, become everything. She gestured around the study. I thought I was protecting Julian from my mistakes. Instead, I turned him into his father. And now? She smiled sadly. Now I'm moving into a 2-bedroom condo, learning to live without walls of photographs pretending we were perfect. She moved to the window, watching Noah and 𝘊𝘒3𝘋 play. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you actually had. A noise at the door made us turn. Vivian stood there, Emma's diaper bag over her shoulder. The movers need the keys, she said, then hesitated. We're still on for Sunday? Noah seemed excited about the playground. As long as you remember the rules, I said firmly. No manipulation, no games, no comparing the children. Vivian recited, then added softly, just family. Whatever that means now. I handed Edith the study keys. She took them, then surprised me by pulling out an old photograph from her purse. Found this while packing, she said. Showed a young woman in workout clothes standing proudly in front of a small gym. Me at your age. Before I decided status mattered more than strength. I studied the woman in the photo, seeing echoes of myself, of Vivian, even of Caroline. All of us fighting for something we thought we needed, only to find different battles worth winning. Keep it, Edith said. Remind Noah that his grandmother wasn't always a nightmare mother-in-law. She actually laughed, a real laugh, not the polished society chuckle I'd grown to hate. Something like that. Outside, Noah's voice carried through the window. Mommy! Emma did it. She's walking. We rushed to watch as Vivian's daughter took wobbly steps toward Noah, Grant filming with his phone while Caroline cheered. A moment of pure joy, untainted by expectations or facades. You did the right thing, Edith said quietly. Breaking our cycle, making us face ourselves. It wasn't about breaking anything, I replied, watching Noah help Emma balance. It was about building something better. As Edith left for the last time, I opened her letter to Noah. The final lines caught my eye. Your mother taught us that true strength isn't in what you own or control, but in knowing when to let go. Remember that, and remember that family, real family, is built on love, not fear. Even if it takes some of us a lifetime to learn the difference. I folded the letter, tucking it away for Noah's future. Outside, my son was teaching Emma to play patty cake, their laughter echoing through the empty house. Not every broken thing needs to be fixed, I realized. Sometimes it just needs to be rebuilt, differently but stronger. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, surrounded by the truth of who you are.